I think one rule of thumb is to focus on the activities that are going to drive revenue instead of the things that are just distractions. And I guess what I mean by that is a lot of times, especially newer, entrepreneurs, like they get very bogged down by the website and the logo and the colors and this button where it goes um and getting their LLC formed, and there's all these kind of business distractions that you can kind of that I think sort of subconsciously people focus on so that they are avoiding the things that are actually gonna start moving the needle, which is revenue generating activities like talking to potential customers, making sales, um, and just doing the things that are actually gonna grow a business.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7 and 8 figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. You ever need help with yours? Just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Thomas Oakes. And Thomas started his journey and grew up in Minnesota and got into snowboarding. And then went off to college at Gonzaga. And during that time, also did a bit of studying abroad in Europe. And started a travel company with a friend after college, or in the EU. And then afterwards, moved back to the US and worked for a fintech startup and wanted to do his own thing. And that led to what he's doing today. So, with that much as introduction, welcome on the podcast, Thomas.
Hey, great to be here. It's gonna be fun.
Absolutely excited to have you on. So, well, I just gave just a quick run through to a much longer journey. So why don't we rewind and unpack that just a little bit and tell us a little bit about how your journey got started up growing up in Minnesota and getting into snowboarding.
Yeah, happy to. Yeah, I I that was a big priority for me, and kind of how I spent a lot of my time in high school was going out and I would say hitting the hills, not the mountains of Minnesota. It's pretty flat there, but got into snowboarding, became an instructor, and that's kind of how I paid my way to be able to get out onto the slope so much. And then, um, when I was, I think in a sophomore is when the first time I got out to Whistler. I went with one of my cousins who was a lot older than me. He took me with his family, and we checked out Whistler. I was blown away by the mountains. And I just was like, wow, I can't believe this exists. I had no idea, and I gotta find a way to be out here by the mountains. So I ended up looking at about 5 or 6 colleges out here on the West Coast and decided on Gonzaga. Kind of had that, classic college campus that you had seen in the movies, and that's probably what sold me. But I ended up going out there, and then during my time at Gonzaga, they offered a year abroad, where they would have about 130 students do spend a year in Florence, Italy. And so I ended up doing that, which ended up being the probably one of the best choices of my life. Just learned a ton, kind of came into my own, I feel like, a little bit, as people do and they study abroad, just kind of opens your eyes a little bit. And kind of also uh, made me want to go back there. And so when I graduated from Gonzaga, then I spent a little time in Seattle, and then went back and started a travel company with a friend of mine called Euro Adventures, and he still runs that to this day. But
But
we kind of
just one quick thing just to fill in.
yeah.
So, what did you study in college, or what was the degree in?
Yeah, so my degree was in psychology, and I was kind of on that path for a little bit to become, I was looking at going into a PhD program actually when I graduated. So I got a job at a boys' home, where I was helping there, and to kind of build up to kind of my experience and also resume to apply to grad schools, and then just kind of had more of an entrepreneurial itch and just and decided had an opportunity to go do that and did that instead and kind of never looked back.
Awesome. Well, so now, and that was kind of, it sounds like maybe spurred by, doing this year abroad and being able to travel in Europe. And you thought, that would match up with the entrepreneurial desires to kind of get into with your, your friend or, the colleague getting into the travel business or in the Europe area.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I didn't, I didn't have much of a desire to be an entrepreneur, I wouldn't say until yeah, I kind of just decided to give it a go. Like that's really what inspired me was just trying it and then realizing that you get to kind of, you live or die by your own decisions and you can be your own boss and that's where I kind of fell in love with entrepreneurship in general. And just learned a ton, doing we didn't know what we were doing and it was very grassroots. This is in the very early days of Facebook. So there were no Facebook ads really. We did everything through Facebook groups, and that's where you could bring in all that you could join these groups and bring people into groups and kind of funnel people into your own group. And now groups has evolved so much, but that's kind of how we got, it's how we really blew up as we were able to find out, well, who's going to be you know, coming to Europe and the, especially students and the groups they were joining, and then be able to kind of market to them that way. And so we were pretty dead our first year, and then we kind of blew up our second year and throughout. So I spent 5 years over there running that business, and then decided to move back to the States. Um,
I just out
and
of curiosity, so you
yeah.
did that for 5 years. Sounds like it was a good learning experience. Had probably a good time doing it as well, and a great opportunity. Now, what drew you back to the States, or what made you decide to go in a direction or a different direction after those initial 5 years?
Yeah, I think a big thing was I think we had a little bit of I think different priorities of how we saw the business, my partner and I, and I kind of was interested in more scale, more systems, and kind of making it a bigger company, and that wasn't really his goal, and so I think we just had it's just a difference of what we wanted to do with it, and that kind of affects like your lifestyle and what you're doing in the business and it was it's the best job and best thing ever in your 20s, but as I got older, it just became more of a little bit just more of a crazier lifestyle than I was looking for. And so that's where I decided just to move back to the States. But I mean, the time I was there, like I couldn't imagine having a more kind of fun and adventurous 20s for sure.
Oh, that sounds awesome. So now you're coming back to the States, and at that point, did you kind of have an idea as to what you wanted to do in the States, or what that next direction was, or how did you figure out kind of where you're going to go from there?
Yeah, I think, I was interested in helping small businesses. I got to meet so many small business owners when I was, in all the travels. Like every weekend we were going to, the Amalfi Coast and the French Riviera and Munich and all these different places that were reachable within bus of Florence, which is a lot of places because Florence is actually pretty central. Um, and so I got to meet all these small business owners over there and just, really appreciated what they were doing and how they kind of contributed to sort of the fabric of life, I mean, not to get all philosophical, but that was a lesson I learned over there. And so I thought, I want to learn or I want to work more with small business owners. And I found a company here in Bellevue called BizX that was really a champion for small businesses. It's a barter platform that allows businesses to transact with one another without using cash. And I really liked that idea. It's really a way for small businesses to kind of reduce their waste too, and just make the most of their capacity, make the most of what they have going on in their business. Um, and that was a really cool idea. And so I joined that team, and I was there for a number of years. I became COO after a period of time, and then but I always kind of had that itch to go back to being an entrepreneur. And so eventually I decided to leave there and start my own thing, And so I again starting to work with small businesses, with service, B2B service businesses, and helping them kind of start the right conversations with the right people. And so that's what I'm doing now.
Now, how do, or kind of again, you make that a bit of a, shift or going in an additional different direction. Kind of what led you to that, or how did you settle on that as kind of wanting to get back into doing your own thing and captaining your own ship and go your own direction? How did you decide, or how did you land on that?
Yeah, I think I learned a lot about messaging and positioning and branding because I was working with, literally hundreds of different small businesses around in the Seattle area and how they kind of go to market and how they market themselves. And I noticed a big disconnect in, many of them were not using LinkedIn. They were not doing outreach, especially the B2B service businesses. And they were too reliant on referrals. And it just created a lot of waves in their business. And so, so I was helping them with those strategies and also helping our own company kind of go to market and managing a team of people who are doing that. So I'd say I kind of learned my outbound, outreach chops at BizX at that company, and then decided to, hey, this is something that a lot of companies need help with, and just took my knowledge there and decided to work with companies on my own. So that's what got me interested.
Awesome. Well, that sounds like it set you up and was a fun direction to go in, and also kind of gave you that freedom you're looking for. So you kind of decide, okay, settled in that direction. That's where I want to kind of put my efforts and endeavors into. Now, how long ago was that, or kind of when did you get that started?
So that was a few years ago that I started now Referral Program Pros. So been at this for a few years now. And been just having a ton of fun working with all kinds of different B2B service businesses. So it's been a good ride so far.
Awesome. No, that definitely that makes perfect sense. Now, kind of walks through. So, been doing it now for a few years. How's that evolution gone? Is it something that's been a rocket ship to the top, and more you've had more success and more money raining down from the skies, to do with one where you're always teetering on the verge of bankruptcy and never knowing how to make payroll, somewhere in between, or kind of maybe walk us through that a bit as far as how things have gone and kind of catch us up to where things are at today.
Yeah, yeah. So it kind of, I would say it took, I would say probably 3, 4 months to kind of really get the right offer out there. I think that's like the biggest problem I see businesses have, including my own, is making sure that your offer lines up with what the market actually wants. And that just took having a number of calls with people and like asking them. And you start with offers and people like them or they don't. You kind of refine them over time. And so once we then got I think the right offer, meaning what's something that businesses can afford, but that's also something that we can fulfill on at scale. And that turned out to be outreach via LinkedIn and email at different levels. And so, I think I would say rocky at first, and then that offer really started to resonate with people. And then as we got our own kind of, outbound going and started that machine, then, having a consistent 15 to 20 calls a week really propelled the business pretty quickly. And we've kind of been growing ever since.
No, it sounds like a great place to be in, and continuing to evolve and improve on the different areas. So now, kind of with that, if as you caught us up to the present day, now if you're to look just a bit into the future, if looking in the next 6 to 12 months, kind of where do you see things headed, or kind of where do you see things going over that period of time?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd be really looking to in 2025 to double or nearly double what we've done this year. And looking at working with some more teams as well, and kind of developing our outreach service for companies and teams, as well as kind of the individual, the B2B service providers, the consultants, the coaches, the smaller teams and kind of expanding to bigger. And then also adding right now working on a SaaS product that will help folks get more referrals and be able to do that at scale. So I'm pretty excited about that too. That's kind of something I've been working on in the background, but I won't say too much about it, but that's an exciting new project. But just as far as our core offer, um, just really scaling how we help folks present themselves on LinkedIn and how we enable them to do outreach in a really effective way.
No, it sounds like a good direction, or some exciting things to come, and will be fun to see that ongoing evolution of things. So, well, with that, now as we have kind of reached the present day of the journey, and even looking a little bit into to where things are headed, great time to transition to the two questions I always like to ask at the end of each episode. So we'll jump to those now. So the first question I'd like to ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made, and what'd you learn from it?
Yeah, I think the worst business decision was to jump too early into software without kind of, you don't know what you don't know. And, I'm always a proponent of, do first and iterate because that's what actually gets things done. And that's what I did. In this case, um, I started building some software and, that gets expensive and didn't have the idea totally fleshed out. So, ended up spending tens of thousands of dollars and, big learning experience. I learned a ton and, it even made me kind of more determined after that. But that was, I would say, not a great business decision, to kind of jump the gun. And I learned a lot and I learned how to do it right. And now I'm kind of starting an iteration of that project now. But bad decision, but I definitely learned a ton from it.
And that, and that one's always kind of hard. A lot of times as you get into software, there's a lot of opportunities sometimes to make it more efficient, to automate it, to have some reoccurring revenue, and yet, getting that just right and be able to define it, and otherwise, having that, is a good value proposition. One can be expensive, two can be hard to find, and oftentimes it's an evolution. And so definitely always easy areas to make mistakes, but also great ones to learn from.
Hmm.
Second question now that I like to ask is, so now if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one rule of thumb that you'd recommend?
Yeah, I think one rule of thumb is to focus on the activities that are going to drive revenue instead of the things that are just distractions. And I guess what I mean by that is a lot of times, especially newer, entrepreneurs, like they get very bogged down by the website and the logo and the colors and this button where it goes um, and getting their, LLC formed. And there's all these kind of business distractions that you can kind of that I think sort of subconsciously people focus on so that they are avoiding the things that are actually going to start moving the needle, which is, revenue generating activities like talking to potential customers, making sales, um, and just doing the things that are actually going to grow a business. So I think and to shorten that up, it's do and then iterate versus, plan and have paralysis. So that's the one piece of advice that's been worked well for me. And that's what it would be.
No, a good rule of thumb, and definitely a great takeaway. Well, now as we do wrap up towards the end of the episode, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
Yeah, I think either LinkedIn or email. My LinkedIn is just Thomas Ryan Oakes. And if they want to get in touch with me via email, it's just tom@referralprogrampros.com.
Awesome. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out, support a great business, make a new connection, if nothing else, make a new best friend. So Well, with that, thank you again, Thomas, for coming on the podcast. It's been a fun, it's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you that are listeners are out there, if you have your own journey to share and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we'd love to have you. So just go to inventiveunicorn.com, apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners. Make sure to click share, subscribe, leave us a review. Helps us to reach even more startups and small businesses to help them along their journey to success. And along that note, if you ever need help along your journey with patents or trademarks or anything else with your startup or your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we are always here to help. Well, thank you again, Thomas, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thanks, Devin.